chosen one. You didn't stumble upon this message by chance, you were summoned. This moment was carved into time long before clocks began ticking. You didn't just click on a video, heaven clicked on you. This is not entertainment. This is not content. This is a divine interruption. A sacred summons. A holy alert from realms that recognize you more clearly than some people ever will, right now. A scroll is opening in real time, and your name is not just written in ink, it's etched in the fire of eternity. You've been moving through this life like a mystery, even to yourself. You felt the pull, the ache, the restlessness that couldn't be explained. But what if I told you someone saw you before you were ever born? What if I told you that the ancient prophet Enoch, the one who walked with God and was taken without tasting death, saw you, that in his visions of the end, he didn't just see plagues, empires, and collapse. He saw you. He saw chosen ones rising in the final hour, cloaked not in titles, but in truth, not recognized by crowds, but known in heaven's courts. He saw those who would awaken not through religion, but through remembrance. And now that remembering has begun, if you feel the pull in your spirit, if your heart is racing and your soul feels seen, this word is for you. Hit that like button to align yourself with this divine transmission. Subscribe to stay connected to what heaven is continuing to release through this channel. And most importantly, comment 999 right now to declare that the gates of remembrance are swinging wide. In the comments, post this bold proclamation so heaven and hell alike take notice. I was seen by Enoch and activated by God. I also want to take a moment to thank each of you who've supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity helps keep this mission alive and ensures these words continue reaching chosen ones across the earth. And even if you haven't donated, please know this from the bottom of my heart. Your presence, your energy, and your spiritual agreement are deeply valued and appreciated, whether you give or not. You are family here. So now, silence the noise. Tune in, because this is not just another message, it's a divine signal. Something ancient is being unlocked inside of you. The scroll is opening. The frequency is rising. The time has come. Let's begin. God's chosen ones. Enoch saw you in his end-time visions. You were always meant. Enoch saw you, chosen one, not as the world sees, but through a veil few understand, in his sleep, in his waking, and in the thunder that rolled through the heavens, speaking languages only the angelic realm could comprehend. He saw you, not dressed in prestige or decorated with applause, but ignited with holy fire, not praised for your popularity but scarred with divine evidence, proof of battles fought in silence and victories earned in tears. Enoch witnessed a remnant rising in the end days, a generation hidden in plain sight, crowned not with gold but with grit, illuminated not by spotlight but by prophecy branded deep within. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt different? Why certain rooms drain you and shallow words exhaust your spirit? Could it be that you were never meant to blend in, but to set the temperature of the space you enter? Chosen one. Your presence shifts atmospheres. You walk through modern streets, but your eyes carry ancient memory. How do you explain dreams you never read about? Knowledge you never studied? Authority you never rehearsed? It's because you are encoded with something this world cannot teach. Sacred memory flows in your veins, divine frequencies waiting to activate. The word reminds us, before I formed you in the womb I knew you, and before you were born I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. This wasn't random. You were marked before time had breath. Enoch didn't just document events, he traced bloodlines. He scribed frequencies of those who would carry the DNA of disruption, holy anomalies who would ignite a new age. Your flame, chosen one, is not just flickering, it's flaring. And the enemy sees it too. Think about Harriet Tubman. She had visions from God, divine dreams that guided her and others to freedom. She was dismissed by many, but her fire couldn't be contained by opinions. Or look at Nikola Tesla, who claimed to receive downloads of technology in flashes of light out of time, out of place, yet precisely chosen. Were they not also carrying codes before their generation was ready? And now, so are you. That strange pull you feel, that unshakable restlessness that nothing earthly can soothe. It's not anxiety. It's reawakening. It's the scroll whispering through your marrow, breathing through your bones, saying, it's time. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. Romans 8:19. You've felt the weight of misalignment because you were made to usher in realignment. Everyone else might be sleepwalking through life, but your eyes are wide open. Your spirit recoils at counterfeit peace, because you were made to war in the spirit, to speak truth when silence feels easier. Does this not explain why your childhood felt like exile? Why betrayal keeps knocking at your door but you still choose love anyway? Consider Nelson Mandela, locked away for decades, yet emerged, not bitter, but with divine clarity and strength that shifted a nation. Or Joan of Arc, accused of heresy, burned by men, but forever anointed by heaven. She didn't need validation from the church to carry God's presence, and neither do you. When the temple rejected the Spirit found its temple in human vessels like you. You are the altar now. You are the dwelling place. The sacred presence moves through you in ways that institutions can't bottle. Chosen one. Can you feel the memory inside you waking up? This isn't déjà vu, it's divine recall. You're not remembering your past. You're remembering your assignment. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, He has put eternity into man's heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11. That ache in your belly isn't hunger, it's scroll ink. It's eternity trying to squeeze itself into a mortal container. And hell knows it. That's why you've been hunted since birth. Hell read the same visions Enoch saw. The forces of darkness circled your birth in dread because your name was already echoing through prophetic pages. And they were right to fear. You're not just light, you're a disruptor. You don't just glow, you interrupt. Patterns break when you walk into a room. Systems collapse when you speak. Generational curses shake when you pray. Isn't it curious how your very existence seems to irritate demons in others? Isn't it strange how you've had to carry burdens that seem too heavy for your frame? Yet somehow you never crumbled. Think of Malala Yousafzai, shot for wanting education. She rose, not in bitterness, but in brilliance, shaking nations with a voice that refused to die. Or consider Maya Angelou, whose words were shaped by trauma, yet healed generations. What if your pain was never punishment but preparation for your prophetic voice? The camouflage is tearing. Chosen one, the disguise no longer fits. What used to be tolerable now feels toxic. Your spirit is shedding old skins. You are not losing your mind, you're gaining your mandate. Enoch is watching. Heaven is leaning in. The cloud of witnesses is stirring. The scroll is unraveling. And you are the fulfillment of what they saw. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above. and those who turn many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. Daniel 12:3. You are not random. You are not an accident. You are the very echo of heaven's long-awaited response to darkness. You were the one the scroll described. They shall rise with remembrance in their eyes and thunder in their breath. Can you feel the thunder stirring? That isn't just poetic, it's prophetic. You are the thunder, the storm wrapped in human skin. They called you lost. But you were only sealed. You weren't abandoned, you were assigned. Hidden in silence, buried in timelines, planted like a seed for such a time as this. Look at Jesus himself, born in a manger, rejected by his own people. Yet, he carried eternity in his breath. And you are walking in that same pattern. Truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. John 14:12. The greater things are already stirring. The system tried to bury you, but didn't realize you were a blueprint. You weren't created to fit in, you were born to stand out. You felt invisible for years, haven't you? Like no matter how much heart you gave, the world passed by without notice. But chosen one, what if your invisibility wasn't rejection, it was divine insulation? What if heaven didn't hide you because you were unworthy, but because you were dangerous to darkness before your time? Enoch saw this. He recorded visions of a peculiar people, sealed ones, not sealed with symbols or outward splendor, but with vibrations, frequencies too high for this realm to understand. These weren't people that fit in. They were people encoded, marked by heaven's pulse, vibrating at a rhythm that only angels could perceive. How do you explain the way you've been overlooked in rooms where your presence carried the answer? Could it be that your silence was protection? That the shadows you despised were actually sacred veils heaven placed over you like armor? You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. Psalm 32 Sheba. The world didn't skip over you because you weren't good enough. It skipped over you because God covered you before hell could counterfeit your calling. You were hidden in plain sight, like divine contraband wrapped in humility. Think about Elijah Wood before the Lord of the Rings, an actor known, but not global, until the exact time came. Or consider Catherine Kuhlman, who carried such an intense anointing that even walking into a room stirred atmospheres. For years, a few saw her value, but God was preserving her behind a curtain until the world was ready to feel what heaven had long marked. Could that be your story too? Have you confused obscurity with failure, when in fact, it was heaven's cloak? Enoch documented those whose pain wouldn't dilute their purpose. Sealed ones walk through trauma and don't lose their tenderness. They move through systems built to numb them, education that told them to shrink, religions that told them to conform, families that taught them to stay quiet, and still, they carry the light. Still, they carry the flame. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair. 2 Corinthians 4-8. Chosen one. You didn't survive because you're lucky. You survived because you're loaded. Loaded with glory. Loaded with disruptive truth. Loaded with keys to gates that have been locked for generations. Look at Tyler Perry, once homeless, now a media empire builder. What kept him? Vision. An invisible script no one else could read but him and God. Or consider Corrie ten Boom, a Dutch Christian who saved countless Jews during the Holocaust. She was not loud, not flashy, but sealed, hidden by grace, moving through a corrupted system with uncorrupted courage. Do you see now why your struggle never disqualified you? It was never about being perfect. It was about carrying something incorruptible in a world addicted to corruption. You tried to fit in once, didn't you? Tried to drink from the same wells, chase the same validation, even sin like the rest, only to feel hollow. Have you ever asked why rebellion never satisfied you the way it did others? Why darkness made you nauseous? Even when you tried to convince yourself it was freedom, chosen one. You were never built for decay, even in your darkest moment. Heaven was too close to let you stay there. When you tried to give up, when your knees hit the floor, not in prayer, but in surrender to exhaustion, the Spirit still whispered, "Not yet, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God." Colossians 3:3. That hiddenness is not punishment, it's preparation. You've been smuggling sacredness through seasons designed to erase you. You've been carrying glory like a secret package marked, "Do not open until appointed time." And now, the seal is beginning to break. Think of Misty Copeland, the first African-American female principal dancer at the American Ballet Theatre. Her talent was dismissed, criticized, ignored for years. But what couldn't be erased was her internal rhythm, one that moved outside cultural expectations. That's you. You've been dancing to a frequency others couldn't hear, and now the music is getting louder. Your struggle isn't proof of your brokenness, it's evidence of your purity. In a world that trades truth for comfort, you've refused to bend. In a culture that celebrates imitation, you've fought to stay authentic. And that battle, those sleepless nights, those quiet prayers, those moments where tears replaced words, those were your rehearsals for divine release. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16, Sheba. Chosen one. You are the vessel that darkness underestimated, the container that heaven has guarded, the frequency that hell fears. And you're not late. You're on time, insulated for impact, hidden so that you wouldn't be diluted before deployment. Could that be the reason doors didn't open earlier? Could that be why certain connections fell through? Why certain platforms didn't take you in? Why your brilliance seemed buried under delay? You were sealed for now. And what's about to emerge from you will not just shine, it will signal, it will vibrate at a level only the appointed can respond to. And just like Enoch saw, you will rise, not with titles, not with applause, but with resonance. Those who are meant to find you will feel you, because you were hidden not to stay forgotten, but to be revealed in divine timing. There's a reason you made it through what others could not. There's a reason why. While others crumbled under the weight of trauma, addiction, or despair, you kept rising. Even when you didn't know how, even when you didn't have language for spiritual warfare, even when your body was small and your voice was undeveloped. The attack started early. Why? Because hell knew what you carried before you even had the capacity to define it. The enemy recognized your vibration before you recognized your voice. Can you remember moments when you felt spiritually hunted, long before you knew why? Have you ever wondered why the darkness came for you young? You weren't just unlucky. You were marked, sealed by heaven, and selected for a time like this. The enemy didn't wait for you to grow into your strength. He tried to break you in seed form, through confusion, through abandonment, through family dysfunction, through premature exposure to spiritual heaviness. But still, you survived. Still, you emerged. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. That's not just a promise, it's a prophecy fulfilled in your very breath. Look at Oprah Winfrey, abused as a child, misunderstood for much of her youth, yet chosen to carry global influence. Or Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery and became a prophet of liberty and truth to nations. These weren't comfortable callings. They were forged in fire. Just like you. You don't bloom in comfort. Chosen one, you bloom in chaos. You awaken in storms. Your soil has always been adversity. And still, your roots run deep. Your frequency? It's fire-resistant. It doesn't buckle under pressure. It gets sharper, hotter, clearer. What if the pain wasn't meant to break you, but to signal you? What if everything that tried to silence you actually tuned your voice to a divine pitch? We have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. 2 Corinthians 4-7. You were never average. You were always carrying something eternal in an earthly container. And while you were busy trying to survive, heaven was positioning you to be a signal, a vibration that would awaken the other sealed ones. And now, the seal is cracking. How else can you explain the divine timing of your endurance? Why is it that you're still here when statistics say you shouldn't be? Why did that car crash miss you? Why did the overdose fail? Why did the heartbreak strengthen you instead of ending you? Because you were already spoken into survival. Before your parents knew your name, the Most High had already whispered your purpose into the folds of time. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my mother's womb, He has spoken my name. Isaiah 49:1. Your survival was written into the scroll, and that scroll is now fluttering open inside your chest. You are part of the mystery. Paul once hinted at the hidden ones, the vessels of glory not revealed to crowds, but carried in silence. Paul wrote, "The creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." Romans 8:19. That unveiling is not for the proud or the flashy, it's for the remnants, the ones tucked away in forgotten cities, lost families, and painful pasts. You've been walking around like you're just trying to make it, but in truth, you've been in prophetic training. Heaven hasn't been watching you suffer. It's been preparing you to release something that this world can't ignore. Think about Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who turned unspeakable pain into groundbreaking psychological insight about meaning and resilience. Or consider Lauryn Hill, an artist whose music didn't just entertain but awakened souls. These are echoes of the sealed ones, people who carried vibrations that defied systems. You too were never created to simply exist. You were created to interrupt. You were hidden because your presence was meant to be a revelation, not just a participation. The signal is now rising from your bones. The shift is happening in your cells. The sound is forming in your breath, and you can feel it. Can't you? The dreams are clearer. The discernment is sharper. The old games don't fit anymore. The old cycles don't hold you anymore. You are being unwrapped. Heaven is removing the insulation. And the world, whether it's ready or not, is about to hear you. Don't be surprised if your relationships start shifting. Don't be shocked when old labels fall away. You were never defined by what they called you. You were always defined by what heaven sealed inside you. Your authenticity has always been your anointing. And now, chosen one, the seal is cracking not to break you, but to reveal you. Call to me, and I will answer you, and will tell you great and hidden things that you have not known. Jeremiah 33:7. That call is echoing now. Heaven is answering. The hidden things are surfacing, and you, chosen one, are no longer being preserved. You are being presented. You're starting to feel it now. Aren't you? That subtle shift in the atmosphere when you enter a room, that sense that the pain you've carried wasn't random, that it shaped something sacred. The awareness that your voice now carries a vibration it never had before. And people feel it too. They look your way as if they've heard something, but no one spoke. They shift in their seats. Their energy reacts. Why? Because the seal over your life is beginning to speak. Heaven's frequency is finally leaking through your pores. And even those who don't understand it can't ignore it. You were never designed to blend in. That discomfort you felt in crowds, that silent grief when you couldn't find your reflection in others, that wasn't brokenness. That was evidence of your divine disruption. You weren't built to imitate trends. You were created to expose falsehoods. You carry a frequency that irritates pretense and dismantles illusion, and that's why certain people disliked you before they ever met you. It wasn't personal. It was spiritual. It was the vibration of your seal, the authority etched into your presence that triggered what they didn't want exposed. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. That light is you. You shine not with ego, but with encoded purpose. You don't seek validation because your anointing was never voted on. The sealed ones don't compete. They carry fire. They carry mystery. They carry ancient memory wrapped in mortal skin. They don't beg for a mic. They become the message. And you, chosen one, are stepping into that, becoming. The battles you thought weakened you, they've pressed the oil out of you. The oil that now rises to the surface, rich and fragrant, like holy incense from crushed olives. Consider Frida Kahlo. Her body bore scars that never healed. Yet she painted with colors the world still cannot forget. Or consider Malcolm X. Forged not in comfort, but in prison. Rejection and radical redefinition. These were not popular voices. At first they were forged in fire, sealed with conviction, and released at the exact hour they were needed. Isn't that exactly how you feel now? As though all the pain, all the confusion, was a divine setup for a voice that the world is finally ready to hear. You've been walking like a wounded soldier, quiet, careful, misunderstood, but deep down, you've always known there was more, that you were carrying something cosmic, and now, the oracle inside you is stirring. The roar is forming, and it's not loud in volume, it's loud in truth. Your silence was not failure, it was formation. Your restraint was not weakness, it was reverence for timing. And now, time has caught up to your seal. Enoch saw your seal in the stars. Before the world even tried to name you, your identity was already glowing in the heavens. He saw your code long before Babel tried to confuse your voice. He saw your lineage before Egypt tried to bury your ancestors under taskmaster hands. He saw your purity before trauma told you to hide it. He saw your power before betrayal tried to reduce it to silence. And now, that remnant, the final remnant, is awakening. Are you starting to remember who you've always been? Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. Daniel 12:3. You are one of those stars. You're not just chosen, you are sealed for glory. And heaven is now peeling back the veil. What they called too intense, too pure, or too much was actually the mark of the set apart. You keep reliving those moments of rejection, the whispers behind your back, the friendships that dissolved when you showed your truth, the silence that greeted your vulnerability. But beloved, what if that rejection wasn't meant to break you but to protect what was still in bloom? Look at the life of Florence Nightingale. She defied expectations, chose to serve in war when women were discouraged from such sacrifice, and built a legacy in the shadows of chaos. Or think of Rosa Parks, one quiet action that disrupted centuries of silence. These weren't loud people by nature, but their presence roared louder than any speech. What about you? Isn't it time to see your rejection not as exile, but as elevation? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Salma'a vishmona isera, isarim vishtaim. Rejection wasn't punishment. It was a filter. It weeded out the ones who couldn't carry your oil, who would mishandle your mantle, who would dilute your destiny. Enoch saw it. He wrote of those chosen for the final hour, not celebrated, not applauded, but stripped. Wilderness after wilderness. Dry seasons that cracked the flesh and strengthened the spirit. These weren't accidental trials. They were divine forging grounds. You were broken open by betrayal that felt almost scripted, and maybe it was. Maybe heaven allowed the weight so your wings could grow strong enough to carry the truth. Maybe your silence was the soil, your heartbreak, the water, and your endurance, the sun. Because heaven doesn't train warriors in palaces, it trains them in caves. Think of King David. Anointed but hunted, promised but hidden, rejected but chosen. Could that have been your training too? Celebration is seductive when the assignment is still embryonic. So God didn't let you be praised too soon. He let loneliness become your instructor. He allowed silence to become your compass, because the voice that is forged in solitude becomes unshakable in public. Your voice, chosen one, has been sharpened by every tear, refined by every misunderstanding, and empowered by every moment you refuse to curse your journey. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Isaiah 40:29. You are no longer weak. You are walking in the residue of divine training. And now, the veil is lifting. The oil is rising. The scroll is opening, and the world is about to meet a sound it cannot unhear. You, look again. Chosen one, rewind the tape of your life, not with grief, but with revelation. What if that abandonment wasn't the loss you always thought it was? What if it wasn't about them walking away from you, but about God walking you away from distractions? What if the people who left weren't stealing from you, but clearing a sacred space so your revelation could echo without interruption? Could it be that every door that slammed shut was actually heaven's hand orchestrating divine acoustics, making sure your sound had room to resonate without distortion? You've always felt the ache, haven't you? That hollow spot, even in a full room. That lingering sense of being embraced but not fully known. Why did it always seem like people loved what you could do but couldn't see who you were? Why did every church pew, every work meeting, every social gathering feel like you were wearing someone else's calling, like you were being dressed in a role heaven never wrote for you? It's because your soul was allergic to imitation. You weren't made to wear what fit others. You were designed to walk in garments tailored by glory. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, Achat Peter, Shtaim Tesha. You were never called to blend in. You were born to break through, to crack ceilings, to interrupt cycles, to pull back veils. And for that kind of mission, heaven had to insulate you from the noise. That isolation you mistook for punishment. It wasn't exile, it was consecration, a sacred distance, a holy quarantine. God pulled you away from the mimicry, the idolatry, the shallow validation that would have tricked you into wearing Saul's armor instead of picking up your slingshot. And yes, it hurt. You've screamed into pillows. You've stared at ceilings with prayers too raw to finish. You've questioned your path. You've asked if maybe you missed something, if maybe you're too intense, too sensitive, too different. But let me tell you something. Heaven has been whispering over you in the stillness. Pain has a language God understands. Your tears didn't go unnoticed. They were scrolls too, and angels read every single one. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm Hamishim Veshesh Shmuna. Nothing was wasted, not even the weeping. Think of Elijah under the broom tree, exhausted, isolated, asking God to take his life, and yet God sent an angel, not with a sermon, but with food and rest. Or look at Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, mocked and misunderstood, yet entrusted with truth that would shape generations. Your solitude has not been empty, it's been sacred. The loneliness wasn't proof of abandonment, it was proof of preparation. Because the higher the assignment, the lonelier the becoming. That's the secret the enemy hoped you'd never discover. You are not lonely because you're broken. You're lonely because you're becoming too glorious to be handled casually. Take a look at the life of Beyoncé, not the celebrity glow, but the hidden hours. She speaks openly about training in silence, working while others celebrated, developing her gift behind closed doors. Or think about C.S. Lewis, who lost his mother young, suffered through war and grief, and yet penned writings that ignited souls across centuries. These were not people surrounded by applause. They were people sealed by silence. And so are you. The garments of grief you've been wearing, they weren't proof of weakness, they were a shedding. Your spirit was shedding everything not rooted in truth, shedding friendships built on convenience, shedding roles that felt forced, shedding expectations that dulled your shine. Every tear was a transaction. Every rejection was a realignment. Every betrayal was a breadcrumb pointing you back to purpose. Enoch saw it all. He saw you at the table, smiling through spiritual sensing, knowing who wasn't for you before their actions confirmed it. He saw prophets dining alone, not because they were unloved, but because their appetite for truth couldn't be fed in shallow spaces. He saw kings weeping in caves, men and women crowned by heaven but hunted by earth. He saw you, chosen one, bearing wounds that weren't accidents. They were wine presses. And the oil they've produced, it's sacred, it's rare, and it's flowing now. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Matthew 5:4. That comfort is not always a hand to hold. Sometimes it's a mantle. Sometimes it's clarity. Sometimes it's the peace that shows up and sits with you when no one else will. And the greatest miracle of all, you didn't lose yourself. You didn't harden. You kept your purity in a polluted world. You kept your softness when bitterness tried to become your armor. You kept loving. Even when love wasn't returned, you kept discerning. Even when deception screamed louder than truth. That's not weakness. That's the evidence of your sealing. That's heaven's fingerprint, proving that everything meant to corrupt you failed. You didn't just survive. You remained holy, set apart, uncompromised. And now, every ounce of pain has become part of your frequency. You don't just carry words, you carry weight. Your presence has become prophecy. And now that prophecy is ready to be spoken, the wilderness was never the end of your story. It was the forge of your becoming. You see it now, don't you? Your spiritual rejection wasn't random, it was your marking. It was heaven stepping in and claiming you before the world could brand you with its labels, before the institutions could mold you into their image, before the noise of culture could drown out your code. That ache of loneliness you've carried for so long, it wasn't a curse. It was sacred space being carved out inside you, a private chamber within your soul where something divine could grow without contamination. That's why the calls stopped. That's why the invitations dried up. Why the room suddenly grew still. Because heaven is protective of power, and you, chosen one, are carrying a word so weighty, so generational, that it demanded silence to take root. They didn't really walk away. Heaven walked you apart. You weren't rejected, you were repositioned. You weren't being punished, you were being preserved. You weren't forgotten, you were being fortified. All of this, it was preparation. You weren't waking up to something new, you were remembering something eternal. This has never been about adding more knowledge. It's about removing the veil. It's about the scroll in your spirit beginning to unseal itself. Line by line, the knowledge you carry didn't come from a textbook. It came from eternity. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. That knowing wasn't symbolic, it was spiritual. That tug in your chest, that sense that you've been here before, that sudden clarity in places you've never studied, those are ancient memories, coded into your marrow. That's not coincidence, it's divine recall. Your dreams were never just dreams. They were encrypted blueprints. They were metaphors for your mission. When you were a child, you called them visions. Now, you're beginning to interpret them. You didn't forget your purpose. You were veiled from it. Until now. Think about Nikola Tesla, who claimed his ideas came in flashes of light, or Akiane Kramarik, who painted heavenly visions as a child without being taught. These weren't normal people, they were vessels of divine memory. What if you are too? What if all those moments of déjà vu, those chills during worship, those times when someone said something simple and it felt like a thunderclap in your spirit, what if those were activations, keys turning in the lock, echoes from a realm you knew before this one? I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. Hebrews 8:10. You were never meant to memorize truth. You were meant to embody it. That's why the world never satisfied you, why normalcy always felt like a cage. You weren't designed to just exist. You were encoded to remember. Your soul is searching, not for stimulation, but for the signal, the vibration of eternity that reminds you who you've always been. That's what you feel when your sleep patterns shift, when you can no longer tolerate gossip or idle talk, when something as simple as the word home brings tears to your eyes. It's the remembering of your assignment, the remembering of the altar where your spirit stood before the Most High and said, "Send me." The remembering of the oath you took before breath ever entered your lungs. That divine remembering is breaking through the surface now. It's not chaos, it's awakening. You were never asleep like the rest. Your soul has always flickered like a candle under glass, shielded but not extinguished, protected but not silent, watching, waiting, and now, the wind of God is breathing upon that hidden flame, and as it ignites, so do your memories. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are returning to what was always inside you. Think of Maya Angelou, whose voice carried more than poetry, it carried presence. Or look at Albert Einstein, who said imagination was more important than knowledge. These were people who walked with an awareness others couldn't name. So do you. And it's not meant to be explained. It's meant to be revealed, embodied, lived. You're not here to impress. You're here to awaken. And that awakening starts with remembrance. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Jeremiah 33:3. But these things aren't new, they've simply been buried beneath roles you played to survive. buried beneath expectations that never fit, buried beneath disappointments that almost made you forget your wonder. But now heaven is calling it forth, every whisper of stillness, every unexpected urge to pray, every hunger to fast without knowing why. These are not random. They are divine nudges pulling you back into alignment. Enoch saw this. He saw a people who would awaken not through systems or sermons, but through remembrance. A generation that would carry scripture not just on their lips, but in their walk. He saw carriers of divine code, living scrolls with hearts instead of stone tablets, prophets who would feel like misfits, kings who would walk as exiles, people who would navigate cities as multidimensional beings, unfolding truth just by showing up. You don't need a microphone. You are the message. This is why no crowd could ever fully hold you, why no relationship could fully mirror you, why no mentor could fully shape you. Because what's shaping you is not earthly, it's eternal. You don't need another guru. You need silence, stillness, sacred space to let the remembering do its full work. Let the flame speak. You didn't merely come from your parents. You passed through them. You are not the product of coincidence. You are the manifestation of whispers uttered in candlelit prayers and groans that escaped the mouths of ancestors who didn't have the words but carried the burden. You are the living continuation of a legacy that stretches beyond surnames and borders, the dreams they couldn't finish, the songs they never got to sing, the altars they built with trembling hands and tired bones. You are the answer. You are the vessel. You are the one the lineage was waiting for. You didn't just arrive, you were sent. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders. Hebrews 12:1. Those witnesses are watching you now, because they know something you are only beginning to realize. Your life was never just your own. You are carrying a torch sealed in blood, memory, and divine timing. That ember has traveled through revolutions, through slavery, through silence, through famine, through exile, through shame, and now it lives in you. The fire survived because it was looking for a vessel strong enough to hold it. And that vessel, chosen one, is you. Enoch saw this. In his sacred visions, he recorded that in the final generation, there would rise a people who didn't just carry their own calling, but carried the unfinished business of those who came before. A people whose lives would be thick with destiny, not because they sought it, but because it found them. Enoch saw you walking in cities built on bones, speaking truth where altars had been silenced. He saw you rising with the sound of prayers that were never answered until now. He saw you refusing to let their hopes die. He saw you becoming the fulfillment of what was once buried. That's why your life has felt so heavy. It's not because you're fragile, it's because you're loaded. You're carrying deliverance for people you've never met. You're breaking systems you didn't build. You're healing wounds that weren't inflicted on you, but flowed through your DNA like inherited sorrow. You're not crazy for feeling things so deeply. You're connected. You're tethered to a line of warriors, midwives, puts, prophets, and revolutionaries who laid groundwork in secret, hoping that one day someone would finish what they started, and that someone is you. Look at Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke not just for his generation, but for centuries of chained voices. Or think of Amanda Gorman, standing at the inauguration, weaving ancestral pain into poetic prophecy. These weren't moments of self-expression, they were moments of spiritual reclamation. You're doing the same. Even if your platform looks like a dinner table, a classroom, a prayer room, or a blank journal page at midnight, You're answering questions your great-grandmother cried into a pillow. You're standing in the echo of promises made under stars long since extinguished. But the promises didn't die. They traveled, and they found you. This is why you're so spiritually sensitive. Why you walk into rooms and feel what happened before anyone says a word. Why you've always been drawn to old languages, ancient rituals, prophetic dreams. Why modern life feels too shallow for your depth. It's because your soul remembers what your flesh forgot. And now, heaven is giving you the language for it. The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Romans 8:16. You are the echo and the answer, the fulfillment and the forerunner. You are the bridge between what was lost and what must be restored. The trauma in your bloodline was real, but so was the anointing. So were the visions, the covenant, the songs, the sacred fire. And now, it's rising. You are the one chosen to activate what was left dormant. That's why the enemy came for you early. That's why you wrestled with insecurity, self-hatred, and confusion before you even knew how to spell destiny. Because hell knew something you didn't. If you ever woke up to what you were carrying, you'd become a walking earthquake to every demonic structure built on silence and suppression. But look at you now. You're not asleep anymore. You're seeing the patterns, the loops, the generational lies dressed up as family traditions. You're noticing the cycles, the fears, the habits, and deep inside, something sacred is rising, a voice you didn't know you had, whispering, "It ends with me." That's not just healing. That's ancestral alignment. That's you becoming the living answer. That's the moment the bloodline flips. That's the fire Enoch saw in the eyes of the end-time ones, not a fire that merely mourns history, but redeems it. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities. Isaiah 61:4. That's your assignment. You're not here to repeat cycles. You're here to rebuild altars. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need the spotlight. You just need to be faithful to what's trembling in your bones. Think of Viola Davis, who turned childhood pain into a legacy of truth and power. Or think of Malidoma Somé, who bridged ancestral wisdom with modern understanding. These aren't just success stories, they're remembrance stories. So is yours. Your obedience is unlocking doors that haven't budged in 400 years. The devil thought trauma would numb you, but it only made you more discerning, more awake, more dangerous to darkness. That ache to speak, that craving to write, to sing, to create, even when no one is watching. It's not ego, it's not random, it's your scroll unfolding. It's your spirit crying out to release what generations buried inside you. Your soul isn't seeking applause, it's seeking alignment. And now, chosen one, you're standing at the threshold of a sacred unveiling. You carry both memory and mandate. Your voice carries code, your obedience carries keys, and your presence alone is prophecy. You were born to finish what they started, and to start what they never dreamed was possible. The torch is in your hand. Burn, and build, and let heaven write a new chapter through you. The prophecy didn't perish in the grave, it resurrected in you, chosen one. The mantle didn't skip a generation, it passed silently, powerfully, through sorrow and blood, finding its resting place inside your chest. That pain you endured, it wasn't wasted, it was prophetic encryption. It was the coding of heaven being etched into your soul through the language of suffering. You cried out in the night, didn't you? Asking, why did it have to happen like this? Why did betrayal come from the one whose love you craved most? Why did the assault on your innocence happen when you barely knew how to speak? Why did the trauma choose you? But what if I told you your pain was never punishment? It was placement. Enoch saw this. He saw the generation whose oil would be wrung from agony. He didn't just see temples and robes. He saw you, warriors with raw wounds, carrying heaven-coded fire in cracked vessels. People who didn't earn their anointing through applause but through silence, through heartbreak, through nights when the only voice speaking was God's, and even that felt like a whisper. You were never meant to be pristine. You were meant to be proof. Your scars are not your shame. They are the scripture your body carries. They glow with unspoken sermons that demons recognize and angels guard. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Do you feel it now? That what nearly destroyed you was actually decoding you? That the trauma didn't splinter your destiny, it shaped it? You weren't crushed. You were recalibrated. You weren't silenced. Your voice was forged in fire. The pain didn't disqualify you. It distinguished you. That betrayal you keep revisiting in your mind. It was your training ground in discernment. That abandonment you thought would kill you. It was heaven's invitation to walk alone with God and to discover his voice when everyone else went silent. Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, yet emerged without vengeance, carrying a blueprint for peace. Or Maya Moore, who left her basketball career in her prime to fight for the justice of a wrongfully convicted man. Their stories weren't convenient. They were costly. And so is yours. You are not just healing for your own sake. You are mapping escape routes for those who will come after you. Every word you speak in truth, every tear you shed in prayer, every step you take in obedience is making a path where there once was none. Pain is a strange teacher. It doesn't explain. It engraves. It doesn't use a podium. It uses pressure. And your life, beloved, has been a series of sacred carvings. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Salma Asrim Vishesh Hamesh. Do you see it now? How every dark room was not your grave but your womb. How every collapse was actually an altar. Every time you broke down, heaven was building something inside you. Every silence you endured wasn't emptiness. It was the amplification of your spirit. That's why your voice carries weight now. Not because of volume, but because of volume of survival. Your very breath testifies that darkness failed. Enoch saw people like you, the ones who would walk through generational trauma and not come out bitter but burning with glory. He saw the misfits, the uncredentialed, the uninvited, yet divinely appointed. He saw wounded worshippers whose praise wasn't polished but was soaked in the oil of real experience. He saw those who would walk into the world, not with titles, but with evidence. And that evidence, chosen one, is you. Your life is proof that prophecy lives. Your story is a scroll in motion. Every time you nearly gave up but didn't, another page turned. Every time you got out of bed with a bleeding heart and still said yes, a new seal was broken. You've been obeying, even while limping, loving, even while aching, moving in faith, even with questions pressing on your chest like weights. That's not weakness, that's power. Heaven isn't looking for another perfect preacher. It's looking for the wounded, willing, the broken, bold, the fragile but faithful. Heaven is waiting on your story, not your polish, and someone else's memory is tied to your voice being heard. Consider Tyler Perry. His childhood was marred by abuse and abandonment, but instead of burying it, he built with it. His trauma became his testimony. or Malala Yousafzai, who was shot for simply wanting education, and instead of retreating, she rose, becoming a global voice for the silenced. These are not just inspirations. They are spiritual reflections of you. You, too, are turning wounds into weapons. You didn't just survive. You translated pain into anointing. And now, chosen one, your presence itself is a protest. Your peace is a war cry. Your joy is warfare. You are the prophecy in motion. You are the encryption unlocked. Your very existence unsettles the atmosphere because you are the one hell couldn't bury. You've always been a disruptor. From childhood, you questioned what others simply accepted. You saw through the lies. You felt the shifts. You heard what wasn't spoken. You walked into rooms and knew even before the words formed. That wasn't paranoia. It was prophetic perception. You were born with antennae tuned to a different realm. And every time you tried to silence it, heaven only turned the volume up. You intended to harm me. But God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis 50-20. The enemy meant to destroy you early, to break your spirit before you even had language. But God used every shattered piece, every insult, every abandonment. Every night you sobbed into a pillow, hoping no one heard. All of it. It became the material God used to build your mantle. And now, the mantle fits. Enoch saw you in the Matrix before the Matrix was ever conceived. Before data and devices, before control systems were digitized, before institutions learned how to brand obedience as righteousness. Enoch saw you slipping between the cracks of false authority like liquid fire. He saw you walking through simulated order with divine chaos in your bones. A disruptor wrapped in flesh, not just difficult to manage, but impossible to contain. The moment you entered a space, systems tightened, spirits, posing as structure, flinched. You didn't just fail to fit in, you were never supposed to. Because what is holy cannot be housed in what is hollow. And you, chosen one, are holy, not in the sanitized, polished way the world defines it, but in the raw, set apart, truth embodied, lion-hearted kind of holy that makes masks melt and lies choke. Have you ever paused to ask why you get so drained in certain environments? Why the meeting at work feels like a performance your soul can't tolerate? Why church sometimes felt more like a theater production than a sanctuary for the spirit? It's not weakness, it's discernment. You weren't reacting to the room was reacting to you. Your body may quietly take a seat, but your frequency starts flipping tables the moment you breathe. That pressure in your chest, that swirling tension you can't name, it's not anxiety, it's reverberation. You're shaking the room's spiritual infrastructure without even opening your mouth. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Your very presence is resistance. You carry a sound that systems can't categorize, a vibration that makes slumbering souls twitch awake. You didn't walk in to comfort people, you walked in carrying a frequency forged in ancient realms, tuned to heaven's architecture, vibrating against every false construct this world calls normal. That's why they tried to tame you. They told you to dial it down. They said you were too intense, too dramatic, too emotional. But really they were just scared. Your fire made their shadows nervous. Your emotional intelligence stripped their emotional manipulation. Your presence forced reflection. And they weren't ready to face the mirror. Look at Galileo, exiled by religious authorities because he dared to say the earth revolved around the sun. Or consider Nina Simone, whose voice, uncompromising and prophetic, rattled the soul of an entire nation. They weren't just misunderstood, they were ahead. Like you. You were sent not to blend in, but to reveal where truth had been buried under layers of culture, conformity, and counterfeit spirituality. You weren't sent to be palatable. You were sent to be prophetic. You are not here to help the world feel safer in its illusion. You're here to help it. Remember who made the sky thunder and the mountains tremble. Enoch saw this. He saw a generation rise with flame in their breath and refusal in their eyes. He saw you walking into Babylon, looking at the king's table, and saying, "I'm not eating your food." He saw you sitting in classrooms, not to absorb, but to decode, to see through the curriculum, to dissect the programming, to say, "This is not truth, this is conditioning." And when they tried to accuse you of rebellion, they didn't understand. You weren't rebelling, you were resonating. Your defiance wasn't defiance at all, it was divine tuning. A soul vibrating at heaven's frequency can't help but shake hell's systems. That's why they couldn't handle your questions. Your curiosity poked holes in their structures, your discernment pierced through the pretty performances. Your art wasn't for aesthetics, it was for awakening. And because they couldn't predict you, they feared you. But fear from the system is heaven's confirmation. When the religious spirit flinches, the prophetic voice is speaking. You weren't sent to build altars in already broken temples. You are the altar, a walking contradiction to every lie they tried to teach as gospel. You are the temple of the living God. 2 Corinthians 6:16. That temple is not quiet. That temple is not tame. That temple is not complicit. It roars with clarity. You are a living, breathing interruption, a soul with thunder in its bones. You weren't made to be understood, you were made to be obeyed. You weren't born to be liked, you were born to carry sound. And now that sound is rumbling through your chest like a lion waking up. Look at James Baldwin, who refused to water down his truth, or Prince, whose art defied categorization and left spiritual residue behind. These weren't just icons, they were frequencies. And so are you. That's why the system tried to smother your fire. That's why they told you your questions were too much. That's why they tried to fit your calling into a cage of predictability. But you didn't come here to play their game, you came to reveal it was rigged. From a young age, you felt it. The sermons didn't sit right. The definitions of God sounded like someone shrunk a universe into a church bulletin. The ideas of power, truth, purpose, they all felt off. And you weren't buying it. That was never arrogance. That was remembrance. You were remembering what heaven feels like. Remembering that real truth doesn't control, it liberates. Remembering that real God power doesn't manipulate, it restores. That's why you couldn't sit still. That's why you asked the questions no one dared to ask. That's why you felt older than your age and more aware than your mentors. Because you were sent with memory, with mandate, with fire. Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces, Jeremiah 23:29. That's what you carry, not just words, but a hammer. Your truth breaks facades. Your presence cracks false peace. Your vibration wrecks shallow theology. And you didn't need a pulpit to do it. You just needed to breathe. You just needed to show up. Because your frequency alone is a warning shot to darkness. The sealed one has arrived. Enoch saw you not just basking in divine light, but stepping boldly into places where lies hid in plain sight. He saw a generation that wouldn't just carry light, but confront the counterfeit, not out of bitterness, but out of alignment, not because they hated the system, but because their very existence disrupted it. That's you, chosen one. Your presence reveals what others spend years trying to bury. You weren't born to echo the narrative. You were born to shift it. That's why your soul refuses to rest. Every time you try to settle into something comfortable, it cracks beneath your feet. Every time you try to play small, truth bubbles up in your throat like a holy eruption. You can't participate in falsehood without your spirit sounding the alarm, and that's not dysfunction. That's divine calibration. You weren't made to nod politely while deception hides in plain sight. You are a divine disruptor to darkness. You've been given holy eyes, the kind that don't just see through people, but see through systems, through stages, through pulpits, through structures wrapped in scripture but void of spirit. You know the difference between performance and presence, between charisma and consecration, between churchy noise and holy fire. And it's exhausting sometimes, isn't it, to see what others ignore, to be awake in a world lulled to sleep, to shout from a high place while the crowd claps for the illusion below. But what if I told you that shout is why you were sent? Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Ephesians 5:11. You weren't called to blend in. You were called to name the lie, to pierce through the haze with truth so sharp it slices masks from faces. That's why your voice has always felt like a sword. That's why Enoch saw you not as a critic, but as a clarifier, one who speaks with such piercing conviction that spirits tremble behind the facades they've worn for centuries. He saw a people who would call out deception, not with pride, but with heaven-backed authority. And that's why they tried to shame you. That's why they said you were too intense, too deep, too sensitive, too suspicious. It wasn't that you were too much. It's that your clarity made their confusion crack. Think of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stood against a corrupted church during Nazi Germany, or Sojourner Truth, whose voice shattered both racism and sexism in sacred spaces. They weren't just activists. They were oracles, just like you. Heaven didn't send you to be agreeable. Heaven sent you to agitate false peace. You are not too much. You are the exact measure needed to collapse deception where it hides. Stop shrinking. Stop doubting the accuracy of your sight. Your vision is not a burden, it's a weapon. And the more you honor it, the clearer it becomes. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Matthew 6:22. That's why you've always felt out of place in institutions. Why rituals felt mechanical. Why you could sit in a room full of believers and still feel more of God alone in your car with no music, no sermon, just presence. You're not delusional. You're calibrated for glory, for weight, for truth unfiltered. You carry a compass that doesn't point north, it points heavenward. And right now, heaven is speaking. So stop asking to be understood by the very thing you were sent to overturn. Stop seeking affirmation from systems you were built to confront. Your job isn't to be liked, it's to be true. You are not here for applause. You are here for alignment. You are a breaker of illusions, a mirror that makes facades shatter, a voice that makes demons squirm and institutions itch. And you don't need a pulpit or a title to do it. You just need to stand in your knowing, because when you speak, deception doesn't just tremble, it crumbles. When you enter, darkness doesn't just shift, it recalibrates. When you refuse to agree with the lie, heaven's scroll opens a little wider. That's how powerful your presence is. You are the correction the earth has been groaning for. The one who came not to point fingers, but to point people home. You are the walking reminder that truth is not extinct, that righteousness still breathes, that heaven still interrupts history. And right now, It wears your name. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew Hamash, Erba Isara. You were never meant to be hidden. You were never meant to be silenced. You were never meant to be rebranded by systems that feared your rawness. And heaven is proving that now. It is breaking every false identity off you, every lie they told you about who you were, every label they attached to your survival moments. You've worn names like shame, anger, failure, and too much, but none of them ever fit. They were assigned by people who didn't recognize your spirit, only your symptoms. But those names are burning now. They're falling off like scales. Because heaven is speaking the original name over you again. The name you knew before trauma taught you silence. The name you carried before religion taught you to doubt your discernment. You are not weak for walking away from spaces that stifled your spirit. You are obedient. You are not rebellious for refusing to conform. You are aligned. You are not arrogant for naming what others pretend not to see. You are awakened. And now, heaven is commissioning you again, not with a robe or a title, but with clarity. You will speak, and the atmosphere will tremble. You will write, and the unseen will be stirred. You will move, and illusions will lose their grip, because you are not just one who sees you, are one who remembers. You remember what holy feels like. You remember what presence sounds like. And you will never settle for counterfeit again. Not in relationships, not in worship, not in leadership, not in identity. You were sent to remind the world that truth still walks, and it now walks through you. Enoch saw the unveiling long before it ever reached earth. He witnessed a time when the chosen ones, those cloaked in invisibility and shaped in silence, would finally rise, shedding every lie they once wore just to survive. He saw masks melting, false identities cracking like old skin beneath the weight of truth. He saw warriors who once wept in secret, whispering, "I'm not enough," now rising with scrolls woven into their DNA and royalty in their stride. And that's you, isn't it? You've felt it, the ache, the shifting, the sacred unraveling. Something deep inside you has started to whisper, "This was never me." Lately, you've mourned not the loss of a person, but the realization that you've been living under names heaven never assigned to you. Tu emocional. They said, "Tu intense." They said, "Tu sensitive." Too broken. Too much. But none of those labels were ever true. They were just cages people handed you because your frequency couldn't be tamed, because your fire made their shadows uncomfortable. But now, God is tearing every false title off your soul. Every counterfeit identity you adopted in the name of survival is being burned in the fire of remembrance. To all who did receive him, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, but born of God. John Echat, Shatime Sarah, Shelosh Sarah. You were never called safe. You were called set apart. This is not your breakdown. This is your divine stripping, the holy unveiling of what's always been underneath. Glory. The world said emotional, but heaven says prophetic. They called you unstable, but heaven says ascending. They labeled you rebellious, but God stamped you righteous. You never fit into their roles because your anointing was too vast, too wild, too uncontainable for their systems. You weren't sent to wear their titles, you were sent to carry his fire. Think of Harriet Tubman. They said she was mentally unstable because she had visions, but those visions led hundreds to freedom. Or think of Alan Turing, called odd, broken, discarded, yet his unseen brilliance cracked codes and helped end a war. These were not just misunderstood people. They were unveiled vessels, like you. You've been walking around with divine blueprints in your breath, too big for the boxes they tried to put you in. Enoch saw a people rise who would shake off every garment of shame, every disguise crafted in fear, every cloak of counterfeit humility. And chosen one, you are stepping into that very moment. The mirror isn't lying anymore. The fog is lifting, and heaven is calling you by your real name, the one that doesn't carry trauma, the one not formed in reaction, but in revelation. That name is not forgotten. It is anointed. That name is not too late. It is dangerous. That name is not broken. It is beloved. And when spoken aloud, it shakes hell and summons angels into motion. You were never the black sheep. You were always the blue flame, a rare fire that burns hotter, purer, and deeper than the rest. And now that flame is rising, consuming everything that tried to tame you. You feel it, don't you? The detachment, the shift. Old friendships feel shallow. Small talk feels suffocating. Certain rooms drain you. You crave silence, solitude, sanctity. Why? Because heaven is recalibrating your identity from the inside out. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to who you've always been. The unveiling hurts. Yes, the grief of mislabeling runs deep. You start to see how much of your life was spent trying to gain approval for a version of you that was never real. But don't let that sorrow convince you you've wasted time. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Psalm Masarim Vishlosh Shlosh. You haven't missed it. You're not behind. You are right on time for the revealing. The same God who sealed you in silence is now announcing you in clarity, not with fanfare, but with recognition. The right ones are beginning to see you. They don't need an explanation. They feel your frequency. You no longer fit the rooms you once tried to shrink yourself for because you're shedding the shell. This isn't a reinvention. It's a reintroduction, not as the version they named you, but as the one heaven has always known. And when that name is whispered in the spirit, hell shudders, because it knows the one it tried to bury is awake. The one it tried to silence is speaking. The one it called too much is just getting started. You've been waiting for a trumpet, for an angelic announcement, for something cosmic to tell you it's time. But chosen one, the trumpet is in your bones. The scroll has already been opened. The activation didn't begin with this message. It began the moment you survived what tried to kill you. That near-death experience, that mental spiral, that toxic relationship, that shame that almost swallowed you whole. It failed. And your breath today is proof. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, to comfort all who mourn. Isaiah 61:1-2. That Spirit is now moving through you, not just for your healing, but for others. You carry healing in your shadow, deliverance in your tone, freedom in your breath. You were not sealed to stay hidden. You were sealed so you could be unveiled at the appointed hour. And that hour has arrived. Enoch saw a generation that wouldn't just rise. He saw a people who would remember, reclaim, and reveal. He saw them moving through cities like thunder, each step shedding centuries of silence. He saw bloodlines waking up, systems trembling, and he saw you in the middle of it all, not pretending anymore, not performing, just being. You keep waiting for the sign, don't you? Some loud confirmation, some irrefutable moment to finally validate everything your spirit has always whispered. But what if I told you you are the sign? You're not waiting for the heavens to speak. The heavens already did. The prophecy wasn't about someone else. It was you. You are the walking evidence. The echo of a decree that thundered through eternity before earth ever spun. You are the message that's been vibrating in heaven's courtroom. Already stumped. Already sealed. You're not waiting to be activated. You are the activation. You don't need permission to rise. You need permission to stop hiding. And chosen one. Heaven is revoking your hiding place right now. No more shrinking. No more spiritual amnesia. No more making yourself digestible for rooms that were never worthy of your fullness. You don't need to apologize for the way you burn, for how deeply you feel, how sharply you see, how fiercely you walk into places and shift atmospheres. You've been marked for this very moment since before time even had a name. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. Before stardust turned into bloodlines, before galaxies formed governments, before empires erected, counterfeit thrones, you were chosen. Since the stars were strung across the heavens like punctuation marks in a divine sentence, your presence has been a planned paragraph. And Enoch, yes, Enoch saw it. He saw a scroll with your silhouette etched in the margins. Not a background character, a centerpiece, a disruptor disguised in human skin, a divine anomaly with thunder stitched into your soul. And now, that silhouette is standing up. You can feel it. Can't you? That strange vibration behind your ribs, that trembling, that isn't fear, it's familiarity. It's not anxiety. It's alignment. Your spirit already knows this path. Your soul already knows the script. It's just your body catching up to the revelation it was always destined to wear. This is why restlessness has stalked you lately. Why comfort now feels like confinement. Why shallow conversations suddenly make your skin itch. Why mediocrity has turned bitter on your tongue. You're not breaking down, you're breaking out. The scroll has turned, the page has flipped, and your name is being read aloud in the spirit, not whispered, declared. You can feel it in the way your dreams have shifted, in the urgency in your belly, in the way silence feels like strategy, not isolation. You used to speak in riddles, hoping someone would decode your depth. But now, your words carry reverberation. They ripple across dimensions. You used to walk softly, careful not to disturb, but now, your footsteps cause the unseen to tremble. You used to dream quietly, hiding your visions like fragile glass, but now, heaven is saying, declare it boldly. You're not preparing to rise. You're in mid-rise. This is what elevation feels like when you don't even realize you've left the ground. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Romans 8:19. The world has been waiting for you. Not a sanitized version of you, but this, you, the unveiled, unapologetic, uncontainable you. Everything that happened was not a detour, it was the divine route. Every heartbreak rerouted your anointing. Every delay was heaven guarding the door until the real you showed up. Every betrayal was a course correction. Every wilderness was womb space for your fire. You are not behind schedule. You are right on time, divine time. Enoch saw this. 2. He saw veils being torn not in temples made with bricks, but in temples made of flesh, in people like you, people who would awaken not just to their calling, but to their cosmic context. Your story isn't small. It was never just about your city, your family, your trauma. Your story is scroll-sized. Heaven has been writing your chapters in the ink of perseverance and the fire of remembrance. And now, You are living in the sentence. Heaven never stopped writing. Think of Malala Yousafzai. She didn't wait for permission to speak. Her voice was the signal. Or Greta Thunberg, accused of being too young, too intense, too inconvenient. And yet her presence disrupted nations. What if your story is no different? What if your very breath is a portal for prophecy? What if the people you think are too far gone are just waiting for the frequency you carry? So listen again. That trumpet you've been waiting to hear, it's already echoing inside you. Your bones hum with it. Your breath is synced to it. You are the sound. You are the shift. You are the one Enoch saw moving through dimensions, shaking off centuries of silence, awakening dormant codes in the collective soul of humanity. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 61. You are the fulfillment of that rising. Heaven has already released your name into the wind, and when that wind blows through you, systems collapse, chains snap, frequencies adjust, because when heaven announces a chosen one, hell listens not out of reverence, but out of fear. You didn't miss your moment. You are the moment. You're not waiting for alignment. You are the alignment. You've been asking for the fire, but you're the flame. You've been searching for the door, but you're the key. And now, chosen one, the scroll is open, the name is declared, and your rise is no longer pending. Now, rise not as the world expected you to, not as your past tried to shape you, but as the one who remembers. Rise not from striving, but from knowing that you were always the fulfillment of what was whispered in ancient thunders. You were always the prophecy in motion, not broken but becoming, not forgotten but foretold. This is not your beginning, it's your becoming. So breathe now. Let this truth settle in your spirit like gold dust finding its rest. Let every counterfeit identity fall away. Let timelines collapse, old roles dissolve, and trauma-born masks melt in the light of your revelation. You were seen before you ever stood. You were known before your name echoed in any room. You were chosen before breath filled your lungs. The world may never fully understand what heaven sealed within you, but it will feel it. It will shift when you walk in alignment. You don't need the world's applause to walk in the fullness of your calling. You are the validation. You don't need to be crowned by man. You were sealed by the voice that spoke galaxies into being. You are the thunder wrapped in skin, the scroll enfleshed, the whisper now roaring. So let your breath slow. Let the flame in your belly burn steady. There is no need to rush, no need to prove, no need to hustle for space that was always yours. Just become calmly, powerfully, and boldly what the scroll already declared. You are not waiting for revival. You are the revival. You are the breach in the pattern, the ripple in the system, the pulse of heaven in motion. And when the voices of fear return, and yes, they will, when doubt crawls back in the night, dressed in old memories, when shame whispers from the shadows of yesterday, remind them with unwavering fire, I am the one Enoch saw. I am the one they couldn't stop. I am the activation disguised as a survivor. I am God's chosen in this final hour. That declaration is not just defense, it is identity. And now, chosen one, rise. Rise with stillness in your soul and fire in your step. The unveiling is complete. The remembering is real. And the world will never be the same because you woke up. You didn't just survive. You emerged. You didn't just endure. You embodied. Thank you for walking this sacred journey with me. If this message touched your spirit, if it confirmed what your soul always knew but never had words for. I want you to know how deeply honored I am that you've been part of this revelation. Whether you watched, listened, or sat in silence while your spirit wept, I see you, and more importantly, heaven sees you. If you feel led to support this mission and help expand this message to more chosen ones around the world, you can donate through the Super Thanks button below. Your contribution, no matter the amount, helps carry this fire further. And whether you donate or not, please hear this from my heart. I am truly thankful for your presence, your obedience, your attention, your energy. It all matters more than you know. So now, I bless you. I bless your remembering. I bless your return. I bless the scroll written on your bones and the oil that flows through your voice. May clarity find you in quiet places. May peace anchor your pace. May heaven keep confirming who you are again and again. And may your steps echo like prophecy through every hallway that once tried to silence you. You are not going back. You are going forward. The scroll is open. The page is yours. And heaven has called your name.